Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Sam.
And I'm Melissa.
Today we're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to talk about what happened after I moved out of my childhood home.
Yes, we've had a lot of great comments asking for more specific questions about what happened, the night after he left and
how did I survive?
Yes, how did he survive in the weeks and the months following. And so we just want to give a few more details in his how and why video of why he did leave the FLDS church and polygamy in his family. He kind of goes over like a really broad, generic what happened, but we want to kind of get into some specifics.
I guess people like details. People like details. So
everybody likes details. Yeah. We want to know. We want to know the nitty gritty.
Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit more about details and exactly how that all went down for as long as and cover as many details as we can, I guess, in the short amount of time that we have. So
yes. And if any of you continue to have more questions after this, please ask them in the comment section. We love questions. We'd love to be able to answer them, and especially ones where you're wanting more specific details. We'll either continue to make videos on them or answer them in the comments. Yes. So please
once again, thank you for all of your questions, comments, and support. You've all been great.
Yeah. So we're going to kind of start off with the night that you left. He wasn't planning on leaving, but he was working with some brothers and decided, to not go home that night was kind of how...
Yeah,
right.
That's exactly how it went. Looking back, obviously, I think, wow, that was crazy. We didn't have any plans. We didn't have any, money either. We didn't really have anything other than just we were 18 years old, and we wanted a change in life. And we had met some people that had allowed us to see a little bit more of the outside world, and we wanted to explore that and learn more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had originally stayed up talking to one of the daughters of a family that he had worked for construction before.
Yes. So we had spent some time. Me personally, not so much. I had been there a couple of times. We did some rock work. We were remodeling their home, and we were doing rock work on the outside of their home. So as we were doing this rock work, we met one of their daughters, and so we started talking a little bit. And actually, one of my other brothers got kicked off of the job because he was talking with her, because it was a big no-no to talk to girls. So he got kicked off the job and was sent to another job because he was being bad. But anyway, so I worked there. I went there a couple times, and I actually had met this girl once or twice while I was there. So and she had talked, or I guess we briefly met other members of her family. So we're getting to know the family a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit at that time.
Yeah, and she was the girl that you guys had stayed up talking to the night that you decided to leave.
Yeah, so the night we decided to leave, let's just say that morning when we woke up, my brother and I left, it was me, one of my brothers, my older brothers, just older than me, and then it was one of our friends that we had out there in the polygamist FLDS group as well. He was with us. We were all working together that day, along with two of my other brothers. So we were all working on a job that day. When we finished up our job, two of my brothers went home. They were the good boys. They went home. Me, another one of my brothers, and our friend decided that we wanted to go out with this girl and go to dinner. And anyway, we ended up talking for quite some time. After dinner, we sat in my brother's truck, and we just sat there and talked. And it was hours. It was long past our bedtime. We should have been home. And this was this was in St. George, where we ate and were talking, St. George, Utah. So it was a 45 to an hour drive home. So we were still a ways away from home when we realized that it was, I believe, after midnight when we finally thought, man, we're going to be in big trouble. We're not only are we out way past our curfew, I guess you could say, but we are talking with a girl and sitting with a girl in the same truck. I mean, this is getting really bad now, right? So we're thinking, how are we going to go home and explain to our parents what we've been doing, and what's the story we're going to tell them? And so at this point, we, for the first time, started thinking, what if instead of having to explain ourselves, we just don't go home? See, and we knew at we knew at this point, and this is I guess the sad part. We knew at this point that if we decided to leave the I guess community that we grew up in, and that's why we had to make the decision of, are we going to leave the community or are we going to stay with the community? Because if we chose to leave, we were not allowed to go back and see our family. And that's just the way the rules were out there. And the way they looked at it is, if someone moved out of that religion and started living life differently and then came back to visit the family, they assumed that we would bring back with us bad influences that would influence the family in a negative way. And so they didn't want us to come back and cause I guess a bad impression or tell the family about things that they didn't want the family to know about, or whatever the case may be. They just didn't want the influence of us going back after moving out.
Yeah. So what was the final thing that clicked where you're like, okay, maybe we do, maybe we don't? What was the final thing that made you decide, you know what, let's not go back? Because that was a huge decision.
Yes, it was. Once again, I was an 18-year-old boy. So my logic probably wasn't the greatest. I really think it was just on a whim. We just decided. Some of it was fear of having to explain ourselves. Some of it was we were having a great time. We had met this wonderful family. We were spending time with this wonderful girl that seemed to be a very happy, wonderful person. And so we just were realizing that there is more to life than what we had had. And so we I guess we were more curious than anything, and wanted to explore and understand what the big wide world had to offer. And so that's kind of where it all came from.
So what did the girl say when all of a sudden these three boys are like, you know what, we're probably just gonna like not go home? When you said that, like, was she in shock? Because
I honestly don't think she knew what to say. I do think she was very shocked at first, because for her, I mean, she knew at this point that would mean that we would not be able to go back. We had talked to her about, kind of the rules and all that. So obviously she seemed shocked, and but she was supportive. She was more of a, wait, whoa, are you serious? but if you're going to, I'm here for you. I'll help. I'll support you. I'll help you in any way I can. And so actually, when we did make that decision, she said, well, my parents have a couple couches, and you can sleep on the couches tonight if you need somewhere to stay. Because at this point we were just kind of back and forth. Oh boy, I don't know what to do, but I kind of want. Maybe we'll just move out. And she said, well, it's getting really late. Maybe you should just sleep on our couches, and that way you can decide in the morning what you want to do. And of course, at this point, it's very late. Obviously, it's and so our parents start trying to reach us and call us. And being young boys and kind of confused at that moment on what we wanted to do, and really nervous about getting in trouble and disappointing our family, and all of these emotions running through our heads, we decided, you know what? Let's just message. And we did have cell phones. Some people asked that question. We did have cell phones, and some of us knew how to text. Most of us knew how to text. So we just sent a message to our parents and said, we're fine, don't worry. But we'll just talk to you in the morning. And
what parent is not going to worry with a text like that from their 18-year-old son?
I know. Looking back, I mean, obviously they were terrified, but more than anything, I'm sure they were terrified that we were
not safe,
thinking about moving out of the religion, because we texted them to say that we were physically okay, so they wouldn't worry. But then we ended up just turning our phones off, because of course they wouldn't stop calling. It was just call after call after call, and we ended up turning our phones off because what was I going to say?
Yeah.
And if I did answer, even if I did try to say something, of course it would turn into a conversation of them trying to convince us to come back the entire night. And at this point it was late. We wanted to get some sleep. We turned our phones off and went to sleep on our friend's couch.
So waking up the next morning, though, like, were you having regrets? Were you guys still in like decision mode? Did you guys did you wake up feeling like clarity, or did you wake up feeling more confused of what you wanted to do?
Well, before we go into how I was feeling, let's talk about how our friend's our friend's dad was feeling when he walked down the next morning to his living room and saw three strange boys sleeping on his couches. He immediately saw the type of clothes we were wearing, so he knew where we were from immediately. And so I think the first thing when he saw us was he called out for his daughter, and because he assumed that she had something to do with it. Anyway, so we got to meet him and visit with him, and the family. We got to spend some time just talking and having a great time. Actually, they were just a very loving family and accepting, and they actually just invited us into their day. It was Sunday, and they invited us to go to church with them, and they just said, well, welcome. Very accepting, very loving family. I think I was shocked, to be honest, because I had so much going on with, I guess, my family at that point. To just have someone so accepting and so loving, it was just, we were just very happy to have that support and love. And so as far as how I felt, was I sure about it or any of that, I think I was just trying to ignore that that decision at that point.
Kind of accepted the distraction of just like spending time with the family.
Exactly. We needed a distraction. Yes, because it was difficult. It was a difficult decision to make. But after talking for some time between the three of us, we did decide that, you know what? Let's pull the trigger. Let's do it. Let's move out and just make a living the best we can and see how this works out. And I believe I said this at one point, but at that very moment, I did think in my head that I was going to experience life a little bit more, but then would eventually move back. And I thought that way because I was so sure that I had all the truth as far as religion goes and the spirituality. I believe that I had the entire truth. So I thought that eventually I'd have to move back so that I could be able to return to God.
Did you go to church with the family?
I did. We did. Yep. And in fact, a funny story. I'm a big guy, so they actually had to borrow a shirt from a neighbor and a pair of shoes from another neighbor, and so they got this wardrobe gathered together for church clothes. And so I was wearing one neighbor's shirt and different neighbor's pair of shoes and everything walking into church. and anyway, but we went and it was great. It was a great time, and I just felt very accepted and loved by the family from the very beginning.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then from there, they actually allowed us to stay. They had a casita in the back of their backyard, and so we were actually allowed to stay there for a few weeks to kind of help us get on our feet and decide what we wanted to do at that point. And so after staying there for quite some time, we actually ended up moving to Las Vegas for some time, doing construction work, and a couple of the mountains surrounding Las Vegas, doing building some cabins.
So how would you get that work? Like, did you just know people that were already working? How did you get the work, and like, where would you stay during that?
Right. So we did have some connections beforehand because we did construction growing up. So we did have a few connections, which we called. My brother called a few people, and they said, actually, yes, we do have some work. Come on down to Las Vegas, and I'll help you. I will help you get this job, and also I have this house that I'm renting out that you can stay in for some time. Okay. So that's one of the first things.
So they had work and a place to stay all at once.
Yeah, and also for some time there, the family that we stayed with that first night. His brother also had a company in Las Vegas, and so we actually came down and worked with him for a while as well.
Oh, awesome.
So anyway, so there was a couple different connections that way as well. We moved up to northern Utah for quite some time as well, doing some different construction work up there. So we just kind of moved around. Sometimes stayed with friends, sometimes stayed in hotels. Just whatever we could do to survive. Yeah.
Were they all like jobs that were like So you didn't ever just get like employed with one company? Were they like contract jobs, or what made it so you moved so much?
Yes, it was just whatever we could find.
Okay.
Yeah, just whatever we could find and moved to wherever that work was. Yeah.
And then, sorry, going back real quick, because I was just thinking.
I know, it's a lot. It's a lot of information.
Going back to like the next day and the couple days thereafter, I'm guessing you didn't ignore your parents' phone calls forever.
Oh, yes. No, we did not.
Yeah. So what was that like? The next day, obviously the distraction with having a loving family, take you in. But what was your next conversation with your parents like? Like, how soon was it? How soon was it, and what was that like?
Yeah, so it was, if I remember correctly, it was the next day, towards evening, the afternoon, evening of the next day, where we called them back, and we just, as as plainly as we could, and as, I guess, it was very difficult. It was a difficult conversation. I remember I called my mother and was just trying to explain to her my feelings. All she could do the entire conversation was tell me to please come back. You know the truth. You've been taught the truth. How could you possibly not see that and feel that? Please come back. And she just, would tell me how much she loved me and
Mama heart.
Yeah, it was very difficult, obviously, because I knew what it meant. That it would mean that we would not be able to live together and be together. But it was just a decision that, and once again, being a young teenager, I wanted a different lifestyle, and I felt that it was the only option I had in order to have a different lifestyle was to leave my family. It really was. I just didn't. So we tried to explain the best we could, and then we said we also need to come back and get our things, which they allowed.
That's what I was gonna ask next.
Yeah. So we went back, I believe it was that same evening or maybe the next day. We went back and we got our clothes and they asked to sit down and talk with us. Father did. And we sat down and talked for quite a while and tried to explain ourselves the best we could on why we felt that we needed to move out. And of course it just was, they were shocked, couldn't believe it. They thought they had taught us better than that, and so anyway, it was just a difficult conversation to have. But we talked for probably about an hour of Father trying to, I guess, convince us to stay and not make this decision. But at that point, we had both made our decision, and my brother and I had talked quite a bit, and we just said we had decided, we had made up our mind at that point. So
before even going back to talk.
Right.
A lot of people have asked too, specifically like with birth certificates, social security cards, those type of things. When you went out there, did you think of grabbing those? Like, did you grab that kind of stuff? Did you grab any pictures, or were you just grabbing like clothes and then? I
wish so badly at this point that I had figured out some way to get pictures, because we had, our parents kept, or I guess my mother kept all of these baby books, all these baby pictures and things from when I was young. But no, I didn't think about getting any of those. I didn't think about a lot of those things. But we did get our birth certificate, and we did get our social security card. So Father's first wife kept all of those things in a safe. All of the legal documents they kept in a safe. And so we did get those. In fact, if I remember correctly, they actually gave those to us knowing that we would need them.
In order to get jobs and those type of things.
Yeah, so we did have those. And we got those, yeah.
Gotcha. So you're going back to you traveling around. So you've decided you're for sure going to leave. You have that hard conversation, go and get your stuff. And then you spend 2 weeks with that family in their casita. Mm-hmm. And then you go and you start traveling around. And then what made you, when did you settle down from traveling around? And what was your first steady job of okay, we're going to kind of stay here for a little bit and do this work?
Yeah. So I moved out in 2018, and for
2008.
I'm losing it. I moved out in 2008, and during that time, as most people know, the economy was just horrible. Mm-hmm. So it was difficult. It was difficult to find a job. It was difficult to have work. So that's another reason that we traveled around so much, trying to find work, and
especially construction work.
Right. So we were all over the place. And I think a lot of people, or some people, probably just were helping us out. Looking back, people were probably just were realizing the situation we were coming from and just trying to help us out. But so we did that for about 4 months, I would say. And then we all just decided, you know what, this is just too much traveling, too much all over the place. And during those 4 months, we had come back to St. George, Utah, several times, and we had been continuing our relationship with this family that we first stayed with. And anyway, so when we moved back, we decided to move back to St. George and just make that our home base and try to find work here. So we did. We came back. We got an apartment. And we all just kind of pitched in, the three of us, and we just went out searching for work. And a lot of us actually got jobs with people that had also moved, or people that had moved from the community before we did. They had construction companies and things, so we would. Some of us got work with them. And I'm trying to remember what I did to begin with. I believe I just did little odds and ends and little things here and there. But my first legit job was with Fabulous Freddy's Car Wash. So that was my first actual job.
Like job besides construction.
Aside from construction, yep. So
Gotcha.
I did that for quite a while.
First steady paycheck.
Yep, yeah. It was very different. Yeah. But
And
that was the first one.
When you left, so you're in an apartment with your brother and friend.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys know a lot of other people who had left the community already? Like, a lot of people have asked, which is a really good question, if you had people to really lean on, or was it mostly just like the three of you just kind of leaned on each other, or did you know other people that had left that you could kind of count on, or?
Yeah. So the people that we leaned on the most were the three of us and the family that we first stayed with the first night we moved out. To begin with, that was kind of the first. That was where we and my brother and I. I mean, it was at least for me, I was very, very glad and happy to have him. He was a huge support, helped me out a lot. Yeah. And so that was definitely a big thing that helped me out a lot. And then also, like I mentioned, the family.
Yeah. Out of all your siblings that had left, like how many of them had left at that point? Were you kind of at the beginning of the pack leaving, or in the middle?
No, we were more at the beginning. Now a lot followed us. We started something, but before us there were I believe, let me make sure I get this right, just three of us had moved out before us, and they were all older brothers, and quite a bit older actually. So they had moved.
They were from first mother, right?
Yes, they were the three of them were all from the first mother.
And did any of them live in southern Utah?
No, they all lived in northern. Actually, let me see here. Two of them lived in northern Utah at that time, and my oldest brother, he actually, I'm not sure where he was living at that point. He drives trucks, so he was kind of all over the place.
Gotcha. Okay.
So there were three of them before us, and then we moved out, and then several followed us after that point.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely have to do another video talking about what it's like to kind of support other people who have left, because we've gotten that question a lot. So we'll save that for another video of what it's like, to have siblings leave after you and kind of support them.
Yeah, and just to be clear, though, to your question, we did know other people that had moved out that weren't family members. And so we did have them to kind of rely on and visit with and all of that. And we did do quite a bit of that, actually, for the first while. We would go visit other families, and some families were established already, had homes in St. George, Utah. And so that made it nice to, be able to mingle with other people and be around other people that have been through the same situation that we had. So
there was a little bit of sense of community.
Yes, there was.
Still.
Yep. There was.
Obviously not to be able to, not quite the same as being with your family, but at least there was some sense of community still.
Yep. And then, at this point, the story goes on for quite some time, obviously. There's a lot more we could talk about. I wish we had more time in this video. But we had a lot of support from just neighbors, friends. One of the big supports was the family we first stayed with. They didn't fade away. They remained a huge part of our life, and still to this day do.
Absolutely.
So they supported me and helped me and another one of my brothers a lot. So anyway, I wish I could go on for longer, and maybe we'll just make a continuation to this video.
A part 2 of what happened beyond when she moved back to St. George.
Yeah.
But For today, we just wanted to kind of give him more depth, a little bit what it was like when he very first left, and for those upcoming months afterwards, just what that looked like, what his life looked like at that point.
Right.
And kind of give you guys some more insight on that. So if you guys like these videos, please like and subscribe. And again, feel free to leave your comments and questions.
Yes.
In the comment section, and we'll try to get back to them and make more videos.
Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.